Hey there, welcome back to Ranting About Nothing. And today I'm gonna do something a little bit different, or whatever I'm doing. I don't know, anyone's watching my channel. I barely ever updated this bloody thing, but anyway, I'm enough side the point. So I've been having some technical issues with one of my videos since I use Movie Maker, and I should really move on to a better system. I don't know why, but every time I try to use it, the sound just completely disappears on it. So I'm having trouble trying to finish the video, so I might move over to one of my other computers. But anyway, that's beside the point. So I'm just going to give out a little sample of one of the videos I'm planning to release, hopefully. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hello there, and welcome back to Ranting About Nothing, and today we're going to be talking about my top 11 characters that I would love to see in the next Smash Brothers game. So, I haven't played Smash Brothers in ages, and I did quite enjoy it. And also I have to mention when I'm doing this list, a lot of these characters on the list, I haven't actually played that game, but I'm mainly putting them on here because I feel like they would be very interesting characters with some very interesting fighting styles that could be bring to the game. But anyway, as I was going to say, so I'm going to make some honorable mentions before I do this list, as there's several characters who I felt like could be in the game, but then I thought to myself, there's going to be some tricky sort of problems with them. Oh, by the way, if anyone wants to know my favorite character playing in Smash Brothers, it has to be always Kirby. I don't care what people will say about Kirby, Kirby is one of the best characters in the game. Anyway, let's go to the honorable mentions. Okay, our honorable mentions first has some of the starter Pokemon. I know it's customary to have at least one of them in there, like Greninja and several of the other ones, but I feel like there's a lot of other interesting Pokemons that honestly could be some pretty interesting playable characters. So there's gonna be no starter Pokemons on this list. Next up was, I was thinking putting some characters from Mace the Dark Age and Clay Fighters, but then I realized those games are quite incredibly very obscure, and the Nintendo 64 wasn't really best known for its fighting games, so I thought to myself, I don't think those characters would really get into the game all that much. And lastly, we had Turok. Well, I like this character, and I like the fact that he's one of the few Native American sort of superhero characters that is kind of well known. I don't think he might get in all that very well, because A, he's on a first-person shooter, and his game is kind of really violent, which is a bit strange given the fact that there's several characters already in the game that come from more mature titles, but I don't feel like he would really get into the game anyway. So, those honorable mentions are over, let's start this list anyway. At number 11, we have Spinal from Killer Instinct. Now, I wasn't honestly sure about putting any fighters, but I felt like there were some characters from the Nintendo 64 era that I feel like need a bit more loving. As I feel like that era of sort of consoles isn't always really represented very much, I feel like sometimes from basically Smash Brothers. It feels like there's a little bit more of a trend towards some of the more classical and more well-known characters. And technically, to my knowledge, I think Killer Instinct was an exclusive on the Nintendo. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. So this was a game that was quite very popular in the franchise, and I believe was made by Rare, who used to be longtime partners with the Nintendo. This series is still continuing, but I don't think it's on the Nintendo franchise anymore. It's nowadays more on the Xbox. But I feel like this franchise too has a big long history with the Nintendo franchise, and I feel like it should be represented. Specifically with one character I think is the most interesting, and that would be Spinal, the undead skeleton, who has gone through several different changes and has several different fighting styles that could be easy enough drawn upon, or even just to use his most newest version of him. And generally I find the character just kind of funny and very interesting, sort of like I said. And he could be a very welcome addition into the game. And I just generally like skeletons. They're always just sort of interesting characters, and I generally find these guys way more interesting than zombies. The only problem that he's going to be facing is the fact that, well, he's not technically a exclusive Nintendo character anymore, so I don't think they're really going to bring him over. And also being part of another fighting series, I'm not really sure if we're going to see him. Sure, they did add, that guy from Street Fighter, Ken, or whatever his name is again. But yeah, I'm not sure about that. 10. I got Alexandra Rove from Eternal Darkness. Now, the GameCube was one of Nintendo's, I would say more of a sleeper hit. I don't think, to my knowledge, that it really took off that very well as some of the other consoles. But it had a pretty good decent library of games with some very interesting franchises, one of them being the Eternal Darkness. Now, it's not really a franchise per se. I do hear that a lot of fans would like another one in the game, but that's, again, like I said, for another video. So what is Eternal Darkness? It is a Lovecraftian sort of styled horror survival game, following the Rovers, however you say the name's family, as they deal with one of their ancestors, I don't remember why, but for some weird reason he unleashes great horror upon the world, and it's up to them to basically use an evil book of great power, which, again, I forgot its name, to basically, turn back this tide of darkness. And the game takes through different time periods with different weapons, and different magical spells as you learn throughout the game. And basically, it's a very interesting game that I wish I could play if it was not stuck just on the Nintendo GameCube. But seeing with all these different characters, and especially with all these different weapons and with the spells, really could make this game very interesting. Even though in the game that if you want to use one of these spells, you have to read out the spell book, and it takes quite a bit of a long time to use it. But I guess that could speed it up a bit more in the game. And mainly I choose Alexander as she is sort of the main character, which I'm probably not saying her name properly. And given the fact that the spells can do different things, such as, they're not very imaginatively named, but they're pretty good little spells, like one that can create a force shield, restore your sanity and magic, or in one that can make you maybe a little bit faster, or some other stuff. And it's interesting that the spells have different effects on enemies, and it'd be very interesting to see how they would do that. And I would especially love it if they had for her ultimate smash, is that they could bring in the insanity mechanics from the game. I'm not sure how they would do it, but it would just be really awesome. The only problem is that I don't think this game is as well known as other Nintendo games, and it's not from the main company. So unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna see this, unfortunately.